Summer adventure awaits in a rugged new Honda. It's time to chase the sun wherever it takes you. With impressive Honda capability and exciting performance. Check out the Passport, Pilot, Ridgeline, or CR-V during the Honda Summer event.
See dealer for financing details.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Do you love listening to our cool, fun, sultry voices? Well, now you can even look at our face.
You can watch us be kind of upset a lot, but also sometimes we laugh and smile over at our new YouTube channel. At Someplace Underneath is the handle. We branched out to our own YouTube channel, and so you can come find all of our old content there, and a bunch of new stuff's coming too.
We love you guys.
Subscribe! Content warning for discussions of violence, child abuse, and the troubled teen industry. Someplace Underneath.
I had a show that got canceled, and I was like, you know what? I'm already out. Let's go out in Hollywood. And I wound up meeting such interesting, fun people and stayed out way too late. I had a great time.
That is fun. And you're making sure you're staying alert, right?
No.
Amber!
No, a lot of vodka shots being bought for me. I know. I should be safe. But the majority of people are great. You know?
Of course. Yeah, for sure. Just be careful out there.
I'm naive. I get that. And
I actually don't think you are. You are not naive. You know what you're doing, and you're smart, and you've traveled alone. You've lived alone. You're like you left the home, you left family home very young. You know what you're doing. I trust you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, got to keep your head on a swivel.
I don't know, but if a cute guy says, do you want me to get you a shot of vodka? I'm saying, yeah.
Amber!
We run a show on missing women and children.
At least watch it being poured. Don't let a guy ever bring you alcohol.
Okay.
Are you kidding me?
Thank you, Mommy.
Amber, do you know how many people are drugging people?
I saw it being poured. It's pretty good.
Okay.
I did step out for a smoke, and I put a little napkin over my drink. Somebody could have done something, but they didn't.
Oh, God.
They didn't.
Don't do this.
Okay, I'm not. Lesson learned. But, when life hands you lemons, show got canceled. I was like, let's go.
I know. I'm making it negative immediately. I'm sorry.
No.
That sounds very fun.
You're very smart. I'm the silly one here.
I really, really, really encourage you, and please everyone, to not ever, ever leave your drink unattended at a bar and never let somebody bring you a drink. We just cannot be doing that in this day and age. People are not well right now.
Right.
And you have to be careful with that shit.
I did. I also took a boxing class. I really enjoyed
it. Which I love. That's great.
No spike in the drinks there.
No, I hope not.
No.
That would be wild. That'd be a wild place to spike drinks at a kickboxing class. Welcome to Someplace Underneath. I'm Nellie Jean.
I'm Amber Nelson.
Okay, well, we're starting off on
a strong foot.
Yeah.
Here, really making good decisions about life.
Yeah. I have to start with the beginning of this. This is, a story of one person who was not well. They weren't going to a bar. Maybe they should have. But there's a lot of really unsettled people right now, and we must be vigilant for ourselves and our family. Most people are sane and normal. Most of them are.
But it takes one baddie.
It does.
One bad person.
It does. So please don't go around being distrustful of everybody. But, as we're recording this episode, there has been a terroristic type act in northern Idaho that we're starting to get information on. Have you heard this case yet, Amber?
Is this the firefighters?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're not really, like, who goes after a firefighter?
A very dark person. I mean, when I heard it was Northern Idaho, my mind immediately went to, oh, it's probably prepper white nationalists doing it. It's not that far where this happened. Coeur d'Alene is about an hour and a half south of Ruby Ridge, but it's the same kind of, I guess we'll call it community.
Yeah.
I don't know what you want to call that. Very similar people live in that area. And it wasn't too far off from a prepper white nationalist, but I was actually surprised to learn how young the shooter was. The decisions that Wes Rowley made in Coeur d'Alene on June 29, 2025 will probably never be fully understood, and there's not really, you can't say there's a reason behind it, but we didn't get, at least at this point of recording, there was no manifesto, there wasn't any sort of really paper trail, but the glimpses we get into his background can give us some potential hints. We focused on Utah a lot this season, but in the upcoming episode on racism and white nationalism in the LDS Church, Idaho will be playing a big part in that portion of Mormon history. So that kid, whose name again is Wes Rowley, he's only 20 years old, which that was what surprised me, because the act felt like something a grizzled old man who had been living in the woods would do.
Well, a lot of these guys, the world is very different than when we were 20. Everything's more expensive. It's so stressful. You know all the news around the world. There's people like finding these men and telling them things like, be lonely, be angry. And it's just making the situation worse.
It is. And he could have gotten radicalized online for sure. And we don't know exactly everything about his history, his family, all that stuff. And it's not immediately clear whether or not he's got LDS in his background or not. Though his family is from Arizona and Idaho, which does up the odds slightly. His divorced parents are, however, not the clean-cut, kind of buttoned-up type. But that could be a first-generation thing, because while the prepper community is not exclusively LDS, there is a really weird world crossover between the tight-laced sort of white nationalists that we see and the kind of tattooed biker version of it. They kind of cross paths. And Wes Rowley's family fits into the latter pretty well. His biological father is a literal biker. And in pictures online you can find of his own social media, his gang's vest has a Confederate flag and things that look like they're probably dog whistles. Like there's a shamrock with like sort of an SS-looking skull inside it. His knuckles also are tattooed with an 88, which is a...
because 8 is H in the alphabet.
Yes. So it's a white nationalist symbol.
Yes.
Yeah. And he loves guns. Wes's mom is remarried, and while she seems to have some Hawaiian heritage, she and Wes's stepfather are deep, deep, deep into MAGA world. It's all over their social media. And what we'll get into is how on the surface this all would seem as far away as possible from the centenarian, what is it? Centenarian?
Centarian?
The century-old prophet's birthday party featuring sparkling apple cider and a balloon drop as you could get.
Oh yeah, the 100-year-old man that owns the Mormon church that should be put down in a comfy room.
He doesn't own it. It's like as soon as he goes, the next guy just steps right in, you know? But like the images we see of this guy Wes Rowley and his family, you're like, what does that have to do with this? Like these guys in these white tuxedos and a temple.
Yeah.
But what we're really looking at is two ends of a Venn diagram. In the center is sort of this nihilistic white supremacy. And we're going to talk about that more probably in the next maybe 2 episodes away. But it was so... The news of it this week was really striking and really sad. And it's in the area we're going to be talking about, which really sucks. And it's really a really tragic situation because the kid he's burning forests down, also causing that destruction while forcing firefighters to come in and was trying to pick them off. So I don't really know how like much lower you can be as a person.
Because these are people coming to help.
Yeah.
And then you just pick them off. This guy sounds really dangerous.
He's dead.
They killed him?
We don't know yet. As far as this recording, we don't know if he was shot or he killed himself. We don't know.
Aren't there a lot of like fighter rings in these areas? Like I think I heard a couple news sites that were like, oh, this white supremacist like boxing ring or like fighting camp. And I'm like, excuse me?
They're all up there. I mean, it's really out in the open. And there is a lot of LDS and ex-LDS people in there. So today we are talking about the Idaho wilderness, but in a different capacity, also the Utah wilderness, because people, I guess, really seem to like to set up camps out there in that area of the country, I guess. Some, like we were just talking about, are planning terroristic actions against the government. And some are just really trying to beat the homosexuality out of kids who get caught with Magic the Gathering cards in homeroom. It seems like we should be kind of worried about what's going on in the wilds of Idaho and Washington State and, of course, Utah. But, we just like, we're building all these like homegrown terrorists and everything, but don't worry too much because my local Home Depot today was being raided by ICE. And, these huge kind of roided out ICE agents wearing military gear and holding rifles are, threatening people just trying to feed their children. So don't worry. We have our priorities straight, everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. They were at my Home Depot, too.
Yeah, they're just, don't worry about the guys up in northern Idaho creating, sleeper cells. Let's make sure that the guy who's just trying to make $100 to put food in his kids' mouths, that's the person we need to be worried about at Home Depot.
Well, I wonder if ICE consists of some of those people.
Oh, girl, yeah, 100%. Oh, yeah.
And you can go buy on Amazon an ICE shirt, just like, and you could just be a deviant, bad faker.
Yep.
And then just go kidnap somebody.
Yeah. And we're also getting a lot of reports in that ICE is not acknowledging whether or not certain raids are them. So we actually don't know. Some of these raids where their unmarked cars are coming up and pulling people. This is not a hyperbole. This is being filmed all the time in Southern California where we are guys being pulled into cars, guys refusing to identify themselves, being just taken away. And they have shirts that say ICE. Like,
that's it. I was talking to my family about it. They're pretty conservative. And I was like...
Pretty conservative?
Yeah, they're really conservative. And I was like, this is what's happening. And they're like, Amber, all you got to do is just show them your ID and you'll be fine. And I'm like, I don't know what they're telling you on the news. I don't know what you're seeing. But it's not this polite checkpoint where you just show your ID.
It's not. It's not. They are in full... It's terrorism, frankly. But... Whatever. Someone's been a little sarcastic today. A little sarcastic little baby. Maybe it was the last week, the maggots that I found in my laundry. That could be where my mind.
It's getting hot. The bugs are coming out.
I've never had that experience, Amber.
That is disgusting. But at least you just throw them in the washer. Right?
No.
What'd you do? You just burned your clothes?
No, we had to. Woo, it took me days. I'll probably still find them dead for a while.
Ugh.
Yeah, it's bad. Never happened. Make sure if you have a party that if you're putting all like the tablecloth stuff in the laundry basket there, just shake them out real good, just in case there's some kind of piece of rotten something in there. Doesn't smell, but home to maggots. Damn. Maggots get in your laundry, get all through it actually, and it takes days to deal with it.
Just like shake it out like it's rain.
Yeah.
Oh God, maggots are such like a primal disgust. I went to a clown party, and I've said this on brighter side, but apparently like California's a big clown community. And they said, put your hand in the box for a surprise. And there was maggots in the box. And I was like, I have to go. Like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah, you shouldn't. That's gross.
This is fucking... someone's going to shoot this party up.
It's supposed to be like spaghetti. It's supposed to be fake.
That's the joke. It's like, it's maggots, but it's actually spaghetti. But
it's like rice.
Rice. It was actual maggots.
Yeah, that's... I'm not going to put that on the clown community. That's somebody's fucking...
That's some fucking problems. And I know I keep saying it. I've said this story like 3 or 4 times, but Would you say this story 3 or 4 times?
I mean, I've talked about my maggot gate on both of my shows so far, so there's only so much you can do once you've had maggots all over your stuff. You just got to talk about it.
No. Biblical proportions of disgust.
Yeah. If you grew up in the 90s or 2000s, you may first associate the troubled teen industry with maybe like a Montel Williams or Sally Jesse Raphael.
Right. And
remember her?
Yes. And they'd have a kid that'd be like, I don't care. I say what I want. And they get like a drill instructor to come in and start screaming at them. But I'm going to guess it goes a little bit deeper than that.
Oh, they took them to camps, like real camps.
Oh, God.
Those shows, though, it takes me right back to like either being sick from school or cutting school or just like, you know, just one of those days where you're supposed to be doing something else. TV's on instead.
Right.
Back in the 2000s, baby, where anything goes. But yeah, another one, the famous one, most of you, if you're a little bit younger, at least know Bad Baby from Dr. Phil.
Oh, Catch Me Outside.
Formerly know her. Catch Me Outside. How about that?
Yeah.
In more recent years, we have watched a more subdued Paris Hilton reveal that she was a victim at one of these camps. So you kind of know those from the same pop cultures, right? Like, that's about my knowledge of them too from before this was just like.
Yeah, but the way she described it is that they come in your house and they literally kidnap you.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, way to just destroy all trust.
Yeah.
Ever.
It does seem by logic, just the idea of that would be like, oh, that's not going to help your kid.
No. And then like starve them. I was reading about the the camp you told me to read about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's everything from like food withheld, rape, being locked in a room with no sunlight for days. And like these are multiple allegations. If it's like 1 or 2, you could be like, I don't know about that. But if it's like a lot of people coming out saying you raped me for years.
Yeah, it's almost like you take really vulnerable kids away from their homes and then just like put them in a building with a bunch of unqualified people. And then like a bunch of stuff happens. It's like, wow, and who would have known? Who would have thunk? But no, apparently I'm dumb. I don't know what I'm talking about because all these guys were like, yeah, this makes sense. The kids need scared straight. That'll help. So we have decades of this going on, right? Just like so much what we have already covered this season, I would not have understood what we're talking about to have any sort of affiliation to the Latter-day Saints. And while most resources wouldn't credit them with starting this business model, the Saints really figured out how to add some jazz and make a tidy profit on this industry. Whew, did they really run with it? So how did it first get linked to the LDS church is what I wanted to know when I realized how deeply interconnected they were.
Yeah, how did it start?
Much like the recovered memory therapy that we have already talked about during the Satanic Panic being really wildly popular amongst the academics who were sort of religious-minded, some would argue maybe wildly reckless, there were a handful of psychiatrists on the Western Front who were very interested in rehabilitating childhood bad behavior. And they kind of come from the same school. A lot of it was BYU, but same kind of mindset.
Yeah, this feels very like cornflakes. Eat them to get the sexual thoughts away.
Yeah, a little bit. And there's this sort of spiritualism aspect and also this very high control thing with both of them, which is how I think about them being connected. But it does make sense, you know, if you think about it, the Church of Latter-day Saints really thrives under order, tidiness. There would be this like adolescents, they want to experiment, they want to be artistic, they want to step out of line. It's actually very healthy to do that, right? But the church needs them to be beaten down because they would start questioning things, and we can't have that. And so it really makes sense why demons coming into it, why having these control camps would make sense for them, because it helps them keep people in line to stay in the church. So again, they didn't start this kind of therapy, but they really latched onto it when they heard about it. They were like, you're doing what to the children? Oh, yes, please.
You give us money and we can beat them?
Yeah.
All right.
Literally.
NetCredit is here to say yes to a personal loan or line of credit when other lenders say no. Apply in minutes and get a decision as soon as the same day. If approved, applications are typically funded the next business day or sooner. Loans offered by NetCredit or lending partner banks and serviced by NetCredit. Application subject to review and approval. Learn more at netcredit.com/partner. NetCredit. Credit to the people.
Summer adventure awaits in a rugged new Honda. It's time to chase the sun wherever it takes you. With impressive Honda capability and exciting performance. Check out the Passport, Pilot, Ridgeline, or CR-V during the Honda Summer event.
See dealer for financing details.
So this in itself has a lot of concerning implications as far as what we now know about mental health as a species, and also why children may or may not act out. It's not because they're bad or naughty or possessed. It's like a lot of times it's a cry for help.
A cry for help, or it's also very natural for a teenager to question their own surroundings because they are their own person and they're about to go off in the world and be by themselves and be very self-sufficient, start their own family one day, hopefully. So you should have a teenager that's a little kind of rebellious, not in like a criminal way, but thinking for themselves.
Even if they get a little criminal, I'm not saying they should, it doesn't necessarily mean they need to go to a form school. You know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. And, being a little cunt sometimes is a part of growing up because your hormones are changing. You're trying to understand a lot of really confusing shit as a kid. You're like, what is this? What is my brain? What am I doing? Who are you? How do I feel? It's a lot. Yeah. It sucks being a teenager. And so that's really normal, but in certain circumstances, it's not what is ideal for the others around them, which turns kids into an inconvenience sometimes. And I'm not even saying all parents who take their kids to these places are just evil and gross and mean and hate their kids. I think some of them do, but some parents just don't know what to do. They feel at wit's end and they maybe weren't educated in a way that would be helpful in this situation. And they're just like, well, this school says all I have to do is send them and then the kids will be great. And they try. Yeah. And also, so even though I do think that there are people in this industry, the troubled teen industry and the mental health industry who are careless or cruel or apathetic, I think it's important to also acknowledge that some treatments throughout mental health stuff we might be mortified by now were simply done out of a lack of knowledge, but doesn't really have an excuse of being done now because there's more education.
Right.
So much like recovered memory therapy, these kinds of child reforms are heavily influenced by religious doctrines often that simply don't align with mental health care. Where recovered memory therapy would often bring people's memories back of demons and sacrifices and eating babies, alternately, the troubled teen industry would prey on parents who, again, don't know what to do with kids who aren't complying with stringent social requirements. Some of these kids did have severe issues with drugs or self-harm behaviors, but also we know with that kind of stuff, especially with self-harm, a lot of times that is them trying to release trauma happening in their own lives. And so just sending them into another trauma center is not helping. But regardless, often the kids who are sent there who've grown up and are talking about their circumstances were sent there because they were talking back or they weren't dressing in a desirable way or, were gay, which was a huge one people did not want to deal with. So according to a fantastic interactive timeline that you can all access on unsilenced.org, which is a really great website, it's dedicated to victim advocacy of the many, many, many human rights violations perpetrated at troubled teen industries and long-term recovery facilities. They, along with any other source I found, didn't pinpoint LDS Church starting this. But the industry itself began in the early 20th century with a place called the Devereux School in Philadelphia. So that It's not something I know about. I know you looked a little bit into it.
Yeah, that was a school.
Yeah. So that was from like a medical standpoint, right? That wasn't didn't seem like a churchy one.
No, and I looked at some of their personal, hey, well, come to our location. You know, it's so hard to send your kid off somewhere and you don't trust, but this is a place you can trust. And I was immediately like, something was off about it. And then I just typed in lawsuit allegations and I was like, oh, what? Yeah, well, everybody has shark eyes here. Like they're just lying to me. You know that kid that was singing the Lady Gaga song years ago on the internet?
Yeah.
He went to one of those camps. Aww. And you can look at his videos now and he's like, well, I don't know what they did to him, but it like a lobotomy type. Just get in there and scramble the brain. It's really sad.
That sucks. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so weird to hear that in such a modern setting, because when I think about something like the Devereaux School, it's like, oh, I think about, 1920. Cool. I'm glad it's still happening. So yeah, that was one of the first noted places in the American troubled teen industry that's sort of credited as one of the frameworks for all of that would come in the later centuries. And I think, like you just said, it wasn't a your kids got demons, come here. It was more like, we have the latest technology and science, and we can make your kids better.
Yeah, everybody's just kind of smiling in the video. They're not really showing any of the patients or the kids or anything. It's just like the medical professionals just smiling at the camera saying, trust us with your kids.
Yeah. And this is, again, we have to look at it through the lens of time. We don't know what everybody's intentions were. And this, I'm not going to dwell too long on Devereaux School just because it isn't connected to the LDS Church. And I could definitely see it being grouped in with that sort of newfangled wellness attempts, which were kind of resulting in experimenting on vulnerable people that I kind of connect to early 20th century mental institutions, the kind of things that we see referenced from this time period of being like, oh, your spouse is acting odd. Let's spin him around for a while and see if that does anything. Yeah, put them in a bunch of ice.
Put them in a bunch of ice. Put a bell on their head. Ring the bell.
Yeah.
Your wife votes differently than you. Let's lock her in a room.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like it's connected to that a little bit in my mind. I don't know if that's fully accurate, but just like it's the idea of just like taking difficult people, quote unquote, and just like poking at them. Kind of what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
And it's that trope of like the horror movie, the Mad Doctor, because it's a trope because it did kind of happen sometimes in that time period.
Yeah.
And like you just mentioned, the way the women would be exiled for being weird or gay or masculine or wanting human rights or whatever. Kids were starting to be given this kind of treatment. So through the first few decades of the 20th century, there were a number of long-stay schools and homes for kids who were just a little bit different. For example, there's one system of schools called the Brown Schools that were in the 1940s, where the founders stated their goal was to establish a school for children who had not developed normally. What that meant in 1940 is, anybody's guess.
I would have been sent to that school.
Oh, yeah.
With my attitude.
Oh, yeah. Or just like, asking questions.
Yeah.
Being like, why can't I read the Bible?
I know. And this is so sad because I took the bus here today and there was a woman on the bus who was clearly mentally distressed and needs to be somewhere safe.
Sure.
It is not safe for her to be on the streets. She doesn't know her left foot from her right.
Right.
But instead of like people like that and being taken care of and put somewhere nice, we're just taking people, gay kids, girls who ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so difficult to sort of look at how we deal with mental health care in this country, because we do need these facilities or something that's better than what we've done in the past. And there is a bunch of corruption and there is a bunch of abuse going on, but like people like the woman you just saw on the bus needs help, and we don't have the right system set up. Even if it's not, they need to go to a place.
Yeah.
They need some form of care, and we don't have that. But we do have for-profit industries for if your kid is really into like, Rihanna too much, a little too much or something, And so we're really focused on the money aspect a lot of the time, I think, is what it comes down to as a capitalist society.
Right. You can't make money off of like treating actually sick people.
Yeah, caring for a woman on a bus who doesn't have any money to give you, right? So in the 1940s, we're seeing that same kind of thing, and we don't know what's going on necessarily. I mean, Brown School has a notorious background. You can do deep dives into that as well. And then we go, 40s into the 50s, we're seeing a lot of war trauma, a lot of things going on in the country that we're not really knowing how to deal with. And that's a whole other side thing. But there's a lot of discord, a lot of mental anguish at this time. And it also, segregation was a nightmare. We can't even begin to talk about that in this situation, like what happened to people who weren't white in this country during that time. But by the 50s, the same group who realized they could make millions by preaching on these newfangled televisions saw an open market of fixing kids. So while as before this, it maybe wasn't as focused on kind of church stuff, when prosperity gospel you were able to do that on television, there was this open market of, we can fix kids with our God powers.
Oh, this was like a perfect storm of like religious control and rudimentary science.
Yeah, I think so. And you can, bet that they taking that sort of fear of hell into the idea of sins in children and, having the classics of homophobia, anti-communism, the purity stuff, you can really lean into, while your kids are going to burn because of this and this and this, and we can stop it. So then we have that side, right? And then we come to this thing called Synanon. Synanon is its own season. And I'm sure another show has done that, and probably multiple shows, because of how tragic, how vast and morbidly fascinating the concept of Synanon is. The gist of Synanon, which is another aspect of the troubled teen industry that is like that people kind of credit the troubled teen industry from branching out of Synanon. So we have these first early century schools, and then we have this aspect of prosperity gospel, and then we have this thing called Synanon. And these are all little sections in the making that sort of end up coming together to create what we have now. The gist of Synanon which was founded in 1958, is, by the way, no one can really pinpoint why it's called Synanon, which is very interesting. It was, at the time, sort of an intensive rehabilitation for drug addicts at first. So it comes from anonymous. We know that, just like AA. But this was its own thing to deal with drug addiction at first. But then it sort of developed into a way for you to improve yourself, just like self-help, essentially. The therapy inside of it was, by most accounts, extremely traumatic, but it was a powerful, kind of almost addictive on its own, in its own right, kind of therapy. And part of it was what we now call attack therapy, which is...
That sounds horrible.
It's what it sounds like.
It sounds like a mean girl. It's just like, why did you do this? Why? Look at yourself.
It's kind of what it is.
Are you ashamed of yourself? Like, I guess, please. I'm sorry.
It's kind of what it is.
Damn. I mean, 1958, that's like right around the early therapy time. And that's also right around like acid being developed.
Yeah, beatniks going into hippies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on.
There is. And this is not something that is directly connected to like a we wouldn't call it like a evangelical kind of background. This is much more of like, this is a new modern way to deal with mental health and all this stuff. And so, but they wouldn't call it probably, I don't know if they would have used the term mental health. It would have been first for drug addicts, and then it kind of expanded into like just being, again, better. I don't know. We're all just like seeking stuff all the time, right? And so it preyed on people who were like trying to make life changes.
God, self-help always does that.
It's a slippery slope in there. Yeah. You have to be really careful in that world because there's a lot of predators, unfortunately. So
I had a girlfriend of mine that kind of went into self-help stuff, and then now she's in a sex cult. And
cool.
I try to have combos with her, but it's like something's missing. in her eyes. I don't know what they do to you in these places.
It's so common. It's so crazy. Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, LA has a lot of little micro ones.
She's in like a little micro one. And it's kind of like, whoa. And then sent me this, sorry, and then sent me like a letter that was like, take my course. And I think it's like $400. And I'm like, what the fuck? Who do you think I am?
Oh. Well, start
negotiating?
Yeah, start negotiating costs. Be like, how about $350?
$350, $300.
No, please don't. So we're having a time with Synanon here in the late 50s, early 60s, and it devolved over the next couple decades into what can only be really called an ugly criminal enterprise. And it pushed the idea of tough love, but also incorporated utter dependency on the group, and of course, giving Synanon a bunch of money. Interestingly, we've talked a lot about Jodi Hildebrandt and her tactics. Very similar. They're not necessarily connected, just very similar anger, like rage love.
Right.
Not even tough love as much as just being like, I'm beating you down because of how much I care about you. Also,
Right.
give me $5,000.
And also, like, didn't you make that girl, like, hack down a tree in the desert in the middle of a, sorry, it's like something in the...
Oh, I think you're thinking of a video of her cutting it. Remember when she was cutting a tree down in sandals?
Yes. What is your deal?
She's in
in prison, yeah.
Hopefully never to get out. Well, she may, but hopefully not for decades. We'll see. They're going to have their first parole hearing very soon.
Oh, right. Because with the state she's in, you can be sentenced to life, quote unquote, but then in like 5 years, be like, get out of here.
They really, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, that is not even an exaggeration. It may not be a huge shock just talking about what we know a little bit about Synanon and what we know about the troubled teen industry, that one of the biggest troubled teen industry conglomerates, known as Sea-Doo, was particularly inspired by Synanon and was founded by a former Synanon member.
Sea-Doo. Okay.
Another one that they've never fully explained what it means. There's been a couple different explanations for it.
And it's spelled C-E-D-U, not S-C-A-D-U-U.
Yeah. So Sea-Doo, there's a more insidious reason it's called that and a more neutral reason it's called that, but there's never been a real explanation as to what it actually means. So, which is just kind of like another little spooky element. You're saying like, you're not going to tell me what it stands for. Okay. I guess I'll send my kid there. So the TTI, which is the initialism for troubled teen industry, and the LDS Church seemed to collide first in the 1960s. On the surface, it appears as though it wasn't the money-hungry part of the church that led them first into this world. Instead, it was their fascination, nay, fixation, on pioneer culture and being a part of the lineage of the church. So we've talked a lot about already that the saints really love talking about their ancestors and talking about like my lineage goes all the way back to the Joseph Smith Mormons. Yeah. And they talk about they trace their family trees, and they really love do cosplay stuff and kind of reenact the trails and all that stuff, right?
They love the Wild West, and I think it's because you could just kill someone and get away with it.
Maybe a little bit.
Like there's literally no rules.
Yeah, they really do love the idea. They love the idea of the Wild West. They would not like it if they had been there.
No, because it's hot. You're going to get worms in your asshole. There's no food.
Yeah.
Especially, I'm a girl. Wild West, I'm thinking rape.
Oh,
That's my first thought.
Yeah. And they are romanticizing, let's say that. They're romanticizing the Wild West and...
Oh, like Little House on the Prairie style?
Yeah, a little bit. And by nature of that, it tends to bring a passion for wilderness and survival hobbies, which, again, we've talked about. We mentioned the handcart trail reenactments they do, that LDS Church does, where multiple people have died on them. Not to mention there's the huge prepper community, and they used to be really deeply entrenched with the Boy Scouts until all of the sex crimes came out. So these sort of concepts wilderness and survival stuff, the hobbies aren't alone. They're not abusive. If it's you doing it and you want to do survival skill stuff, that's cool. I love watching Alone.
Yeah.
I love watching Naked and Afraid. Good on ya if you want to do that.
Also, the Outdoor Boys channel. I don't know if he's like Mormon or anything, but it's wholesome.
I don't know who that is, but
It's a guy and his kids, but he goes to like Alaska in winter. And
with
he's
little
like-
kids.
He goes by himself mostly, but sometimes his kids are like throwing axes and stuff. And I'm like, buddy, he's like 2 years old.
Oh, I don't like watching any shit with the freaking kids, but if a guy's gonna go do it, that's cool. I'll watch it. I mean, not for me. Like I don't want to sleep in a sack filled with spiders, known as a tent. No, thank you.
You could sleep in your maggot laundry, and that's like step one.
Yeah, I guess that could have been my introduction into this.
Hello, I'm Dax Shepard.
And I'm Monica Padman.
And we love talking to people. Every Monday and Wednesday, we sit down with actors, authors, scientists, really anyone interesting, and have real, honest conversations about life, success, failure, and everything in between. We get vulnerable, we get nerdy, and yes, I occasionally overshare.
Me too. And I would say more than occasionally.
Yeah, but some of our favorite stories actually come from you, our listeners. That's why we created Armchair Anonymous.
Yes, every Friday on Armchair Anonymous, we get to hear your funniest, weirdest, most jaw-dropping confessions. And boy, have you delivered.
Yeah, from disastrous dates to family secrets to the time you accidentally joined a cult or evacuated without authorization.
We really have heard it all.
Yes, we have, and we love it. So come pull up a chair. Listen to Armchair Expert wherever you get your podcasts.
Summer adventure awaits in a rugged new Honda. It's time to chase the sun wherever it takes you. With impressive Honda capability and exciting performance. Check out the Passport, Pilot, Ridgeline, or CR-V during the Honda Summer event.
See dealer for financing details.
So that's cool. Go for it. Even if you're doing it with your kids, I don't care. Please just tell me content about it. But like wilderness rehab is at least partially traced to one singular undergrad at where? BYU.
Oh, wow.
By the name, a guy named Larry Dean Olson. He was a student at BYU. And for whatever reason, a series of events happened and he was given the opportunity by faculty at the campus to train other undergrads in wilderness and survival skills. It proved to be extremely popular to the point where BYU began offering students who were on the brink of failing out the opportunity to take Larry Dean Olson's month-long course out in the wilds to quote-unquote reset them and have them try the semester again.
Okay. Seems a little fishy.
A little bit. It's weird. It doesn't have anything to do with college, but it's, I guess, so cool. But if you can see that the idea, the seed of that idea of being like, well, if you just go out and have to rough it and reset your mind for a month, maybe you can get back into school, and we'll take those failing grades out. So, and technically those kids are going to be over 18 who are doing that. So whatever, that's not necessarily like the worst thing. It's weird. But in fact, one of Larry Dean Olson's students went on to open up a series of notorious wilderness reform camp experiences. So that is a lot of people's first connection to how the LDS Church first became entrenched. But there are other ways that it slithered in.
Okay.
So we have the world of Synanon influencing reform schools on one side. We have this other side that's this pioneer cosplay disguising the cruel, tough love tactics that they're using. And these worlds begin to collide because game recognizes game. And especially because there is money to be made in that world. So these kind of opposing worlds, they seem to have come together through the aforementioned conglomerate known as CEDU. And much like Synanon, there's really only, again, conjecture about what exactly CEDU stands for. So it is definitely traced back from Synanon, but regardless, this is another one of those kind of worlds colliding in a perfect storm, like we were just talking about with some of the previous. CEDU was started in the early 70s. So the founders of CEDU are not Mormon. They came from this other background. The founder of CEDU, Mel Wasserman, began his programs in the late 60s and really kind of blew up in the 70s. This was a really rich time for self-help as well. Notably, this is when IVLP was really taking off, alongside, I'm sure, countless other promising courses to make your family better. That's all I can ever think. But
right.
They just like people are, they're just, I guess a lot of them are just trying their best.
You throw on the best. Also in the 70s, the economy was really bad. There was no food.
Yeah.
Rampant drug use. There's a lot of terrorist attacks.
And there was probably a lot of guys like Bill Gothard, like the people at CEDU being like, do you want your kids to suck less?
Yeah.
So we don't have time to go too deep into CEDU, but it's also, if you want to go into a wormhole time suck fixation, there's plenty you can research. What's important to the episode is the kind of way CEDU made its way into the LDS community.
The average time that children would attend CEDU was 2.5 years. The program did not believe in the use of medicine or most traditional therapy. Punishment, such as hard labor, isolation, attack group sessions, etc., was often used. At least 3 times a week, students were required to attend RAP sessions, which were attack pseudopsychology sessions led by untrained staff. I think I would be sitting there and I would either cry or be like, fuck you, like, get out of here.
But you can't do that.
You can't
because they would torture you worse. Yeah. It's why it was so effective in the short term, because the kids were being fixed and healed because they were literally terrorized out of talking back or doing anything against. They would literally, the kids would do, just like in interrogation rooms, you eventually will do anything to get out.
Yeah.
Anything.
And you can break down faster than you think in these situations.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, totally. So that quote you just gave was from onsilence.org. And you can see in that quote, you can hear in that quote, the untrained staff section is really reoccurring in these schools. There will usually be a handful, maybe 1 to 5 doctors, and then a bunch of unqualified adults running these places underneath them. So where some Synanon spinoffs went the more sort of almost away from the like evangelical world, more into the, like the esoteric kind of like slam poetry kind of. I don't know how to explain that clearly, but some Synanon spinoffs, because there were many, many schools that went that direction. They were ugly and awful in their own right. They were just different. They had some that direction, and then the other side started marching rank and file into this hardline world of evangelical teachings. And specifically, LDS practitioners were like, yes, and yes, I love it. So in the 1970s, we see a big uptick in troubled teen schools in the LDS coming together. Provo Canyon School was founded in 1971, and that is one of those. While CEDU wasn't LDS but happened to touch tips with them due to the church's shared values and knowledge of wilderness punishment, Provo Canyon School was ass to ass with the church. It was founded by 2 psychologists, Dr. Robert Christ and Eugene Thorne, alongside a third, Jack Williams, and all 3 of whom were LDS priesthood holders.
And you know, you go to these religious schools, so yeah, they're psychiatrists, but they're being trained psychiatry through the LDS lens.
Yes, exactly. So they're in the 70s alone. A lot of weird experimentation stuff is going on in mental health. Then they're on top of that in the LDS world, going to those schools and also being in the temple, being completely immersed in the church itself. And so it's going to bleed into their decision making. Like there's just no way that it wouldn't. And so though they didn't advertise Provo Canyon School as an LDS facility, there's no way to separate those two things. So they're just representing this as a place, just like the ones we talked about in the early 20th century. Your kid's acting up, huh? Send him out to Utah. Now, at that point in the 70s, they were getting students from all over the country, but they didn't have the same reach as they would by the 90s and 2000s, of course, because of TV shows. But this was not saying, hey, we're Mormons at Provo Canyon. It just happened to be run by people using Mormon doctrine, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So as they developed the school, this time period coincides with the beginning of recovered memory therapy and just the first inklings of the satanic panic, as well as the more kind of cerebral spiritual belief systems melding into psychotherapy. And I think it's really important to point out here that one of the founders of Provo Canyon School, Dr. Thorne, was the head of BYU psychology department, which really thinking on it should probably be a bigger point to discuss on the show because, you know, I've been trying to understand how this all happens around these schools. And then you look at this, this guy, Dr. Thorne, who ran this horrific torture dungeon, was also teaching all of these kids. And that had to have had a ripple effect on things. Like, there's just no way it didn't affect people who were then getting psychology degrees.
God, mind control has to be the perfect form of control, you know, to like get people to believe exactly how you want.
Yeah.
Because you're fucking with their soul.
Yeah. And, you know, we get this cliche talk about like colleges are all indoctrination centers and stuff. And like, I think that the argument against that is that if you go to even a religious school, but one that isn't steeped in a very specific doctrine, you're going to get this plethora of different voices. Your teachers are all going to be believing slightly differently things, are going to be teaching you how to, you know, use deductive reasoning and like you're getting all these different voices. The problem I think comes in when you have a school that is connected so deeply into this one very weird specific book and that everything has to sort of revolve around it.
It's just control because you should have different ideas. I remember early on in Christianity, I was like, why can't I like read a book about, you know, Hinduism
or like read the
Quran or whatever? And they're like, and then I can, you know, justify Christianity or argue with it. And they get very angry with me.
Right.
It's like, no, you can't. It's only our opinion. Because if you get lots of different opinions and then you form your own, that person is harder to control.
Absolutely. And so somebody like Dr. Thorne, who is teaching the future psychologist, is also running this Provo Canyon facility, which is one of the really, really, really bad ones notoriously in the troubled teen industry, one of the most notorious in all of them. And there are hundreds of these schools. So that's just, you know, something you want to maybe put in the back burner and think about. But this, along with the wilderness mentality and tough love approach, gave way to some of the most heinous acts against children alleged to have occurred in the whole of these institutions at Provo Canyon. Unlike many of the programs of this time, who, like we had mentioned earlier, refused to administer medication at all and didn't really believe in mainstream mental health research, Provo Canyon went the opposite way, but like not in a positive frame. Much like the mental institutions of yore, they heavily medicated children who came through those haunted doors of Provo Canyon. They were at one point flagged and were supposed to pull back on some of their methods prior to Paris Hilton's notorious stay there. That didn't happen, according to her and many other survivors. This is also corroborated by another famous former prisoner of Provo Canyon, Kat Von D.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And I think she's gone full Republican now.
Listen, I don't know what she's doing right now. I'm not into it, but
I don't know.
Yeah, no, she's going through some stuff.
She's got a lot going on.
She really has a lot of things to say that I don't necessarily agree with. But she did go through, and I appreciate her speaking out about Provo Canyon because she went through, much like Paris Hilton, much like many other survivors who have come forward, went through psychological torture and sometimes physical torture at these places. But they both went to Provo Canyon, again, run by the LDS Church through the leadership of the people running Provo Canyon. Mm-hmm. Provo Canyon was sold to Megacorp Universal Health Services in, I think, 2000, which was ultimately another predatory capitalist nightmare for another day. But they were sold to a Megacorp like many of these schools. They ended up being in these conglomerates run by dark money. Like it's like dark on dark on dark and dark and dark.
Oh my God. Like, you don't even know who owns this. Just some shadow man.
Yeah.
Is this the Illuminati? Like, is the Illuminati not as cool as we think? Like, it's not the guy that, makes guns. It's like the guy that's like, we torture children.
Yeah. It's just the ultra wealthy. I mean, the ultra wealthy are technically the Illuminati. They're not wearing like fun outfits and stuff. They're just like making money off of the blood of children.
It's just like the lamest guy with like the darkest secrets.
Sucks. Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you look at Bezos' wedding, that's the Illuminati. And he's like the biggest loser on earth. Like that foam party. Do you see the foam party pictures on their boat? Ugh.
I mean, a foam party's fun. I don't knock a foam party.
It's not as fun watching Jeff Bezos and his weird wife on their $500 million yacht participating like they're at a rave in 2003. Like, look how fun we are. It's like, you are killing sections of our country. And we're supposed to be like, oh my God, he's so quirky. And his roided out chest. Ugh, get out of here. So anyway, I digress. So Paris Hilton, who was taken to a handful of different teen institutions. I have a lot of my own thoughts about her parents, but Paris was taken. They themselves are not LDS, but she was taken to a bunch of different ones because they couldn't figure out how to control her in the way that they wanted her to. Even though they weren't doing it through a religious lens, they were doing it through a wealthy person lens. She was embarrassing them, and that can't be.
Because if you're at that level of wealth, you're like I hate to say it, but kind of like a breeding horse.
You are.
And you have to like look and act a certain way.
Right.
I used to work for like a billionaire shipping family in New York City, and a woman that was entering their marriage. I mean, it was like a contract they did in days of yore. Like, they didn't actually love each other, I don't think, looking from the outside.
How could you even figure out if you love somebody in that situation? Like, it's like you just said, like, it must be so calculated.
Everything's calculated. Everything's all white and pristine, and everyone's freaking out the whole time.
Yeah.
Because if one thing goes wrong, you could be kicked out.
You would only become a millionaire, and then like,
yes.
Then what? Then what will happen?
Then what? I do remember the girl was kind of a bitch and would talk down to us.
Sure.
And the name of the company, I won't say, but she wanted to, as a wedding gift, get and iron the name of the company. And she told everybody that she's doing it herself because she's a strong, capable woman who is capable to be the future mother, matriarch of this family. And then she misspells the name of the company and then tried to blame us. And we were like, bitch, you said the whole time that you were doing this by yourself.
Wow.
Her mother spent $50,000 a month on skincare for her face.
What?
And I know that because we had to lock in the orders.
I think I remember you mentioning this before, the skincare part.
Yes.
And still don't. I spend too much money on skincare, and I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no.
How you could spend $50,000.
And she looked good, but it was like, it's okay.
So much of that is just... It's just psychosomatic.
That's all it
just
is.
Being like, the cream's on and everything's okay. I'm not getting old.
Yeah, because that's how they think. They're manic. I mean, it's like if they miss a nail appointment or like 5 minutes, it's like a bomb went off.
Yeah, for sure. Control in a different way, right? It's not the church, but it's the same mentality of being like, if everything's set in place,
everything's highly controlled. It's like constant screams in your head. And that's what I get from the religious community too.
Yeah, especially in like this kind of world, in the LDS world, a lot of the time. So
just up your own ass.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't think about things that you want or your dreams or other people's concern. You can't have compassion. You can't have empathy. You can't have, you can't fantasize about, you have to just be in this like weird machine. And that is how these institutions have really thrived until maybe the last like 4 years, like literally.
That's what the boss kept saying. Like, we are a well-oiled machine. We're all a well-oiled machine. I was like, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I'm not a well-oiled machine.
I don't want to be your cog. Get the fuck out of here. You want me to be a what's another thing in a machine? A screw.
A nail. A button.
A button. So Paris Hilton was taken to these multiple places, right? And at one point, even though her family wasn't connected to the LDS community, she ended up at Provo Canyon, which she described as, quote, the worst of all of the troubled teen institutions she went to. She was imprisoned there for 11 months as a teenager. Can you imagine losing that much of your teenage years?
Those are precious years.
They are.
And I heard that, like, they kept calling her family and saying, like, she needs to stay here longer for money.
And they do that. Yes, they do that for sure, especially if you have money to give. But even if you don't, and I'm not, by the way, suggesting Paris had it worse than the others. I'm just using her personal testimony because she's made it public. But many of those kids were there for that long or longer, like years. Some kids were left there 4 years, and their parents were paying 5-6 figures for that, while these kids were just being ripped to shreds as human beings. So Paris is a good example just because she made a pretty extensive documentary about Provo Canyon specifically. You can easily find clips or even the entirety of her documentary on YouTube where she speaks with other survivors who all validate the things she has said about themselves, their own lives too. Forced medication, restraints, SA, solitary confinement, showers where they were watched by adults, fully nude showers watched by adults, by untrained adults, by the way. These aren't like, I don't know who's trained to watch a child shower. I don't fucking know. Nobody, but they were there. And just every awful thing you can think of. And like so many of these troubled schools, like so many things like Synanon, they branched off into spinoffs. And Provo Canyon did that. It spawned spinoffs. As a very lucrative school, some of the faculty at Provo decided to branch off and start their own torture camps, including the notorious Cross Creek Manor, which does sound like a haunted house attraction at a carnival because it wasn't any better than that, truly. The creator of that school, Cross Creek Manor, Robert Litchfield, was a, quote, dorm parent at Provo, which, barf, what is that? That's disgusting. I don't trust anyone doing that. These, again, are not qualified anything. These are grown adults, men and women, who just stay with these kids. So this guy, Robert Litchfield, started doing that in 1977 at Provo. In 1987, he founded Cross Creek Manor, and then he went on to eventually create an entire Rolodex of pain and torture known as the Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in Schools. Robert Litchfield is a priesthood holder in the LDS Church, though he's very private because, as he said in a 2003 profile in the LA Times,
some kids are a little deranged. You never know what they might do.
That shit makes me so angry. He owned dozens of schools, and he, again, used his LDS background as the basis for how his schools were ran. And he goes into a paper being like, he didn't want to put his photo in the paper because of, some kids are deranged after torturing thousands of kids. The article that I'm mentioning, again, is over 20 years old, so I'm not trying to rail against the LA Times, but this fluff piece on this absolute parasite of a human being is pretty gross. And it is being critical, but they're sort of doing this both sides thing with it. I don't know. The title of this article that I just mentioned from 2003 is
Keys to His School's Success? It's God, founder says. You lying. It's abuse.
But they all say that, though we have more info through the lens of times that this journalist didn't in 2003. I do wish they could have also cited the 2011 Utah lawsuit. Of course, it didn't happen yet at that time, but this is part of the Utah 2011 lawsuit against Robert Litchfield. This is part of quoting about that lawsuit.
500 parents and former residents sued WWASPS, alleging in court papers and students were beaten, chained, locked in dog cages, forced to eat vomit, and made to lie in urine and feces as punishment. The complaint also alleges students were forced into sexual acts.
So according to Robert, that was God's plan. Also, God's plan was to make he and his family ultra wealthy. So
the kids are a little deviant, and he made them go lie in their own shit?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What a cocksucking piece of shit.
And obviously, he wasn't the guy walking into every room doing that, but the way he laid his schools out, the way that he, untrained, was running these schools and, quality checked them, this is how they went. And he was one of main people being sued in these situations because of it. He and his family is part of it. He actually brought other members into owning these for-profit torture dungeons. Through his corp, again, it's called WWASPS, or Worldwide Association of Specialty Programs in Schools. There were nearly 30 facilities active over the 80s into the 2020s, though I think all but one have fully shut down due to the fact that when these schools were coming up, I guess they just never had the foresight to be like, these kids are going to grow up. They're probably going to be really pissed about it.
Yeah.
So truly, these kids have just gotten to the point in adulthood where they are getting these legally closed. But like some of them have been open until like 2023. Like these are not, oh, this is way in the past. These were still occurring. And there's still some that are active.
Wow.
But many of them have shut down.
I mean, of course they don't consider these people human. They're just body brokers. They're money. They're numbers. So I'm sure them growing up and being like, hey, being forced to lay in my own feces was really bad, so I'm going to sue you. I'm going to speak out against this, or I'm going to come for you. They're just like, whoa, wait. You were supposed to just disappear.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah. And, they have been really successful in getting a lot of these closed. But unfortunately, with child abuse, like so many times in child abuse, the damage has been done. And we can only assume Robert, who is still very wealthy, is sending his faithful 10% to the church to this day from his millions, having the church add another steeple paid for in children's blood. This is by far not a complete review of the dozens and dozens of facilities run by or founded by active members of the LDS Church. We haven't even gotten into the schools under Aspen Educational Group, which own at least 10 schools inside of Utah. Well, I should say owned. A lot of them have closed, but they owned at least 10 schools in Utah, all of which would have been staffed and run by a large percentage of LDS church members. I am not kidding. I did quick searches on most of these Utah schools, and I could find nearly all of them had a doctor or multiple doctors of the LDS faith running them, which you have to remember, those fees that are being paid at those schools, the hundreds of thousands of dollars, are getting tithed back into the church.
It's just money laundering.
It is. So to break down the number of wilderness retreats and troubled long-stay facilities that are connected pretty directly to the LDS Church would take multiple episodes. While each of these survivors deserve to have their story told, we simply don't have the time to get into the decades worth of mishandling of teens and adolescents who were sent to the plethora of places that did this. But their stories all have the same similar accusations: false imprisonment, forced labor, kidnapping, stress positions, which are things like wall sits and stuff like that, strip searches, solitary confinement, psychological abuse, all of them. So I think most of us are familiar with tales of horror from these places. And if you aren't, please just search Troubled Teen Industry. There are dozens of documentaries about it, books, YouTube videos. This is Paris is the documentary that Paris put out. You can find Bad Baby talking about it, who was forced into Turnabout Ranch by Dr. Phil, which is in Utah and is run mostly by LDS faculty. Also one of the schools that was inside of the Aspen Education Group. Those guys like Dr. Phil and those others, I mean, Dr. Phil's one of the absolute worst. But
I hear he's not a real doctor.
I mean, he's not been licensed to practice in years. He got a doctorate, but he just is not an active doctor, which is, important, I think. But Dr. Phil is not the only one, but those kind of shows would have these deals with these schools and would send kids there. So, that shit sucks. Dr. Phil got famous off that shit too and rich off of it.
I'm sure parents would watch the show and be like, hey, I don't want my kid like that, or my kid is kind of like that. I'm going to call this number today.
Exactly. That definitely happened. And connecting this back to LDS church people is not a stretch. And we've talked so many times already this season about all of these outer companies and people around the LDS church who are making money, but they are especially the wellness community, they're really only reaching other LDS people. The prepper community, they're reaching mostly LDS people. But here, like you were just saying, the power of the troubled teen industry is they have a far-reaching grasp that's not just LDS kids. This is, even though they are using these kind of ideas that are really harmful inside the church, this is drawing in kids from everywhere, and shows like Maury and Dr. Phil platform this idea to hundreds of millions of parents. There is very little federal regulation on these schools, and they tend towards the most remote and freedom-loving states, which you guessed it are often Utah and Arizona, both densely populated by Mormons. And that's another just connection to the LDS Church into the Utah community, which is they want to both control the government, but don't want anybody to tell them what to do ever. So those states don't regulate them very much. These are for-profit businesses. This is a billion-dollar industry. And seeing as a lot of these lawsuits brought in Utah by the victims are being dismissed by Utah judges, the fight to break the chain continues forth. And that's where we are today. We can sometimes only spread the awareness of what's already gone on, but this is a big fight that's still really, really happening today, including that lawsuit we mentioned with the 500 people. A lot of that was dismissed in Utah courts.
Oh, because they're Mormons. They're getting the money and they're getting the kickback. It's, again, dark money.
We don't have proof of that, but that's my feeling.
So then you just get a bunch of stressed out kids that are like, I don't want to go there. And I guess they have to hold everything in. That's not good. Or maybe they're sent over there and then they're traumatized. These kids are going to be adults. They're going to be voting adults soon.
I mean, a lot of them have become adults.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones fighting. And Utah is holding on really hard, although there have been cracks in it. And some of them are from active members, like people fighting against these industries and some of the other nasty shit that's been going on out there. It's not like, they're not a monolith. There are people in the church, government officials who are LDS, people inside the court system who are not okay with this. I don't want to sit here and act like
every Mormon's great with it. No,
right.
They're not.
They're not. But it's a really terrible uphill battle, because beyond just being in the government already being this kind of battle of like morals and values in general, when you then have this sort of closed off world that's also dictating legislation and, making the rules for all of these people who are LDS people at the very top who don't give a fuck about these kids, who think that they deserved it, who don't want to stop the money flowing in. It's really hard to fight against that. And the only thing we can do is continue to make people mad. Unfortunately, we have to just make people upset.
And it's like, tell enough people, like, don't send your kids there. If they stop getting the money, if they stop getting, like, the kids being sent there, that's where you hit them where it hurts.
And they are. There has been a lot of success, I mean, really, truly, because thanks to the victims coming forward and fighting. They weren't going to get stopped. And there's still a huge issue. It's not done, but a lot of them, I mean, literally in the last couple years have been shutting down, which is really good news. But those people who have been running those schools, they should go to jail. There should be regulations stopping this shit. There should be some reform talking about why did psychotherapists, why did psychologists, in what world were they trained in which they thought that this would be okay? We need to address that, those kind of things. So we have to keep talking about it and hopefully break the chain of this abuse. Get the machine. Break the machine.
Break the machine.
Break it.
I've been following a lot of jiu-jitsu stuff, and I keep seeing people say oh, you're having a problem or your kid's you can't adjust to life. Just go to these Georgian jiu-jitsu schools for a few months and forget. And I'm like, is this another white nationalist dog whistle?
I don't know, but I feel like there's so few reasons that you should send your kid away for months at a time.
In Georgia, the country Georgia.
That's kind of, I don't know, dude. Where are you seeing this?
On Instagram.
Oh, God.
Instagram it's getting crazy. I see some racist stuff on there, and I'm like, yo.
That's the country. It's the whole country's like that right now. I mean, I'm not kidding. It looked like a war zone. I wasn't going to Home Depot. I was just you just go buy it. It's like a war zone over there.
Yeah.
But nobody's doing anything. It's just they're being intimidated.
Yeah,
there's nothing there's no crimes happening. It's just these fucking dudes showing up with guns. Whatever.
A lot of kidnapping on this episode.
God.
A lot of kidney, like, for money.
It's always back to money at the end of the day, and that really sucks. But not for us, guys. Not for us. We are the purest. We're the purest of souls.
Yeah, we are pure. Today's the first day of my period, so I think I'm going to go home and watch a movie and drink some tea.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to squat over the open land. Like, give yourself to it.
Oh, like they did in the red tent?
Yeah.
And you bury it?
Yeah, go red tent it up.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll just do that.
Coming up next week, parents. We trust them to make the best decisions for their children. But what if they simply aren't looking out for the best interests of their children? Utah doesn't seem to care. And if Utah is solidifying the isolation of their state's children even more through legislation bolstering parents' rights, who is going to watch the watchmen? Who is going to protect kids from their own parents?
Summer adventure awaits in a rugged new Honda. It's time to chase the sun wherever it takes you. With impressive Honda capability and exciting performance. Check out the Passport, Pilot, Ridgeline, or CR-V during the Honda Summer event.
See dealer for financing details.